It's really kind of a miracle to be able to do this with people from so many different countries. So we'll have a class, and then afterwards, um, if anyone has questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them. I would like to ask.
I would like to ask something.
Yes.
About, well, the theme about freeing oneself from the emotional pressure or the emotional, yeah.
I talk about this all the time. You know, look, there are many different levels of emotions, and emotions are essential if we're going to at least be some kind of a juicy person living on the planet. Problem is, we get caught up in anxiety, fear, insecurity. We get caught up in emotions that are really lower emotions, and they take over. And the reason they take over, we haven't built a system in ourselves that is strong enough to transform these emotions into the higher emotions, which is love and joy and forgiveness. And that's so deeply a part of what this meditation is all about. It's building that kind of a system inside. I mean, you look, I'm very familiar with emotions that take over, and certainly used to control my life for months at a time, and were very difficult to deal with. They created depression, and they created a great deal of unhappiness. Katerina, you disappeared. There you are. And it took time to learn how to take all of that emotional insecurity, all of that emotional stuff that takes over your life, and transform it into chi through the use of the will, through the use of the mind and the breath, to draw all those emotions into the chakra below the navel, where there's balance, there's foundation, there's harmony. There isn't the quicksand of emotions that usually control people's lives. And we can open our hearts and breathe and not allow these things to determine how we're going to live our lives every day. It's tremendously painful and very difficult to be controlled by all these lower emotions, especially stuff like depression, you know, and this deep unhappiness in people.
I'm talking about maybe for hard times that you have to deal for a long time with not negative emotions, but like the fear of something for someone who deteriorates, and you see all the time death coming on, and that's for a long time. And that's a very, very, very strong.
With that, well, look, I went through that with so many people in my life, watching people die close to me.
Me too.
You love them. We're born, we live, we die. One day we all leave the world. And the best service you can do to anybody who is leaving the world is you love them.
Yeah.
Let them be. I had a student once, I'll never forget this. You know, he had AIDS and he was very sick, and he had this thing called Sakasi sarcoma. I don't know. Anyway, his whole body was covered with scabs. And he was living this way for 4 or 5 months, and he was in the hospital, and I went to visit him in the hospital, and I was sitting with him, and it was very painful to see a person going through this. And I said to him, I said, look, what are you hanging on for? What are you holding on to here? You know, you have to let go. And I said to him, if you let go, you're going to come back a beautiful baby. And everything you've learned in this life is going to come with you so that you can build a completely new life for yourself. And you're hanging on to an impossible situation. You know, the next day he died. He just left, which was probably the best thing that could have happened to him at that point in his life. So if you love people, you have the ability to respect life and you respect death and you let them go and you just love them. The emotional stuff is hanging on to them, not wanting to let them go, not wanting them to really be with God, to go to a different level where they can get prepared for their next lifetime, you know?
Yeah.
So you have to just love them that way with detachment, and this isn't being cold, it's really respecting life, it's respecting death. We all go through it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this is I've been through, with my mother, I went through this. I was sitting there and she was very sick and suffering very much. And I said to her the same, I said, you know, look, I can take care of myself. My sister can take care of herself. You know, you don't have to suffer anymore like this. Just, you know, go, let go. We all love you. Just let go. And I'll never forget, after I did that, I did a deep meditation and my father's soul force came into the room. The whole room was full of light. And he said to my mother, I've been waiting so that we can move on together. You know, I mean, this is what it's about. It's about being born and learning how to live here and be happy people and understanding that one day we all leave and we have to leave on the highest levels. And please try and sit still. You know, we have to leave here on the highest levels. And when the people in our lives also one day have to leave. And our job is really to respect that, to make it possible that they live with the most amazing amount of love, the most amazing amount of respect we have for both life and death. Because ultimately, when you can attain this, there's no more death.
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't exist. You know, it's just life. It's all life. Just the soul force moves on to the next incarnation, whatever it has to do. If it's worked out all its stuff on the earth, then there are higher planes of consciousness to where it goes to learn other things. And all of this emotional stuff is just clinging to people, clinging to things that you can't cling to because it's part of the organic evolution of life.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's 2:00.
So I think that this is very important, you know, to learn. It took me a long time to learn this.
Yeah, I've been through with my mother, and it was a real, very, very, very important and very loving,
Yeah, but
loving experience. And that was, for me, one of my richest experiences in my life.
look, I was with it with the person who was the closest person in my teacher, Rudy. He
Yeah,
died in an airplane crash. I was in the airplane with him, for God's sake. I was holding his hand and we hit a mountain, you know? And
yeah.
my first thought was, you know, now I'll find out what the last 6 years were all about. Can I continue doing this deep inner work? Can I continue what he taught me? Can I grow in myself where he doesn't have to come back here and clean up the mess? You know, that was my first thought. He was dying, the person I loved more than anyone in the world, frankly, who saved my life over and over again. And then I thought, Stuart, you know, I just thanked him for letting me be with him the last moment of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Took years of growth to just be able to do things like that, you know? And mostly it's overcoming ourselves and this thing in us that clings to everybody and everything. You know, we rejoice when people are born and we're miserable when they die, you know? And it should be rejoice when they're born and rejoice when they leave. You know, they're going to be with God. I say it all the time because I loved it, you know? It's like when Bach was dying and everybody is crying and lamenting and, oh my God, Johann, you're leaving. He has 17 children, his wife. And he said, why are you all crying? I'm going to where the music comes from.
Exactly.
I think that's extraordinary. What a thing to say. I'm going to where, and that man created about the greatest music maybe ever brought onto the planet Earth. I'm going to the place where the music comes from.
Yeah, that was nice.
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes.
Is it okay to do the love and kindness meditation, the metta meditation of while we do our meditation?
Oh, the love and kindness, what, I don't know.
It's the metta meditation, the one that, the Zen meditation, may I be well and happy.
When you do this, okay?
So it's got it. It's different, okay.
Don't do something else. If you go do that other stuff, go do it with something else. But while you're doing this, do this.
Got it.
Because it'll just interfere with not only your class, everybody else's class. And this meditation is about, love and kindness. It's really about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, there's a little mantra that I do. I say, with love in my heart, I listen to the sound of Om at the center of creation. It's really what all meditation should be about, because love, joy, happiness is the highest state of what it means to be human. But when you do this meditation, please don't do transcendental meditation, don't do this, that, do this. Just respect what we're doing here. And then if you go to another kind of meditation class, I'm not in competition with anybody, do what they teach, not what I teach there. Do what they teach there. Does anyone else have a question they would like? Yes.
I had time with my mother too, 3 months, and it happened the same to me. In the last minutes, I pray very much, and it was very much light in the room. And you said that your father was through the room. What does it mean exactly? It was very beautiful.
Yes, should be very beautiful.
And I didn't cry. I was glad because...
for everyone you love, please try and sit still. Don't scratch your nose. Don't, try and just sit still. Everyone we love lives in our hearts. That's where they live. And if you go into your heart, you open your heart, you'll find your parents, you'll find your children, you'll find all the people that have ever come through your life that you've loved. They're all there. They're not separate from us. They exist inside us. And we attract them into our lives to remind us that we have to go deep into our hearts to learn to love. So when, people you love, move on, they go to another, they don't leave, they're in the heart. Like Rudy, my parent, they're all in my heart. Nityananda, they all live in my heart. And whenever I need them, whenever I call, they come. So the experience of birth, the experience of death, it's all part of growing spiritually. It's part of really developing an amazing inner life that enables you to respond to the world that way. Find that being born is a blessing, leaving the world is a blessing. And there's nothing to be afraid of, The soul doesn't die, it's this body,
I was very much afraid, but I was praying so much, and it helped me because I My sister is older, and I felt like a child. And I asked God, why me? And it takes time to. It was
Listen, my
very
father
hard.
died when I was 16 years old, and it was very painful. But it was, I discovered years later that he was my first great teacher, my father. It was very painful for me at 16 years old to go through that. But the most amazing thing happened. You know, I went into his hospital room for one entire week. He was in a coma. He didn't recognize myself, my mother. And I went into his hospital room and I sat down next to him and I looked into his eyes. I never saw my father at so much peace and with such clarity in his eyes. Never saw him like that. And I asked him, do you know me? And he shook his head and he said, yes. And then when I got up to leave the room, I met his nurse. And this was a changing point in my life. That woman, I don't know who she is or where she is, but I said, what is going on in there? And she said, to her experience, just before people leave the earth, they die, they go into this deep state of serenity, a deep state of serenity. And in all the years I knew my father, I never saw him like that. And I said to myself, why did he have to live 49 years to get that serenity 15 minutes before he left the world? It changed my life. He became my first great teacher. And I only realized it 20 years later, what that moment had done for me.
Same here. My mother.
I don't want to die that way. I want to live that way. And if you live that way, you die that way. With deep serenity, with love, with joy, with your heart open, with gratitude for life, with the miracle of being God's child on the earth.
It's nice to hear.
So I've been through all these things in my life, you know, many times. And every one of them was my teacher, teaching me how to respect birth, to respect death. I once had a student, you know, I'll never forget this. She was 19 years old. I think she was pregnant 3 times in the 19 years of her life, this young girl. And she got pregnant again. And I said to her, I said, look, why are you, why let this soul be born? It obviously keeps coming back to you. Let it come into the world. You know, so she had the baby, you know, and it's, you know, I'm not judging abortion. That's not my job. I don't think about things like that. But I said to her, this soul is trying to be born. Let it be born. Let it come into the world. Now, somewhere on the earth, there's some kid, he's probably 45 years old now, named Stuart, you know, who I haven't seen since he was like an infant. But all these experiences, they really accumulate in you and they give you the ability to see life differently. You don't cling to life. You let it happen. It's the grace of God taking place all around us.
It's true. Change me, the way I am thinking.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question? It's like, I don't, never mind. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, there'll be, I just want to, just one thing. If, you know, look, I've said this before, I have to say it again. If you have to leave the class earlier, please let me know. Because just to cut yourself off, because you have a telephone call or this, or that, a date, you know, and it's just a lot of disrespect for this meditation. If you can't find 10 minutes more to stay here, I don't understand what people are doing here in the first place. So I see people, all of a sudden they disappear, you know. Could be their device did happen, I don't know. But if it's something to do, like somebody emailed me today and said they have this to do at 2 o'clock, they have to leave early. I said, fine, you know, it's not a problem. I don't have a problem with that, but just don't suddenly disappear. It's not good taste. And I think it really makes the class a little bit more difficult when people do stuff like that. Okay, if there are no more questions, there'll be a class again on Thursday, and God bless you all for being here,
Thank you, Stuart.
participating with this.
Thank you, Stuart.
I hope to see everybody on Thursday. Bless you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Love you.
Love you too.